Rain battered the windows of Seattle General Hospital's emergency room, each drop a tiny fist against the glass, mirroring the chaos within 32-year-old Maya Thompson's body. A Black American woman with deep brown skin, Maya gripped the cold metal rails of her wheelchair, her knuckles paling as a contraction tore through her like a rogue wave. Her dark curls clung to her sweat-dampened forehead, and her breath came in shallow gasps. The fluorescent lights above cast harsh shadows across the linoleum floor, amplifying the sterile urgency of the moment. At 9 months pregnant, she was alone. Her world narrowed to this single, overwhelming night. 3 months ago, her boyfriend Derek, 33, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but a forwarding address that led to a dead end in Portland. His abandonment stung sharper than the physical pain now consuming her. Maya's mother, a 55-year-old nurse's aide in Oakland, had called her pregnancy a mistake, her disapproval a heavy weight Maya carried alongside her unborn child. Her sister, 29, lived in Atlanta, too far to offer more than phone calls. The silver bracelet on Maya's wrist, a delicate chain worn daily for a decade, glinted under the hospital lights, a bittersweet relic of a love lost long ago. It was her only companion tonight, a silent reminder of promises broken and dreams left to wither. The intake nurse, a middle-aged woman with a clipped tone, leaned over her clipboard. "How far apart are the contractions now, Ms. Thompson?" Her voice seemed to echo from underwater, distorted by the roaring pain that drowned Maya's senses. 3 minutes, Maya gasped, her voice thin, her dark eyes wide with effort. Another contraction seized her, and she bit her lip, tasting the metallic tang of fear and determination. The bracelet caught the light again, its shimmer a fleeting distraction from the storm within and without. She'd worn it since her early 20s, a symbol of a love that had once felt like forever, now a quiet scar she couldn't shed. The automatic doors whooshed open, admitting a gust of rain-soaked air and the frenetic energy of a Friday night in downtown Seattle. Sirens wailed faintly outside, blending with the murmur of nurses and the groans of other patients. Maya's world had shrunk to this moment. The pain, the fear, the weight of facing motherhood alone. Her journalism career, marked by awards for stories on healthcare disparities, felt distant now. Her notepad and ambition replaced by the primal urgency of survival. She'd always been a fighter. Growing up in Oakland's tough neighborhoods had taught her that. But tonight, she felt her strength wavering. "Ms. Thompson, we need to get you upstairs immediately," the nurse said, her tone shifting from routine to urgent as she reviewed the monitor. "Your water's broken completely, and the baby's heart rate is concerning." Maya's vision blurred, not from tears, but from the intensity of another contraction. She nodded, clutching the wheelchair's arms, her dark skin glistening with sweat. The nurse signaled an orderly, and they moved swiftly toward the elevator, the wheels squeaking against the polished floor. The ride to the labor and delivery ward on the 28th floor felt endless, each ding of the elevator a countdown to a moment Maya had both anticipated and dreaded. The ward buzzed with activity, new lives entering the world, others hanging in the balance. The air carried a sharp tang of disinfectant, undercut by a faint warmth, like hope and fear intertwined. Maya's heart pounded, not just from the pain, but from the weight of her reality. She was about to become a mother, alone, with no one to lean on but herself. Her mother's words echoed, "You're throwing your life away," and she pushed them down, focusing on the life inside her. As they wheeled her into room 2847, a voice cut through the chaos. "We need Dr. Caldwell. Stat!" The name hit Maya like a physical blow, stealing what little breath she had left. Ethan Caldwell. It couldn't be. Not here, not now, not when she was at her most vulnerable. stripped of all pretense. Her heart raced, memories flooding back. Late nights at Columbia University, his blue eyes promising forever, his blonde hair falling across his forehead as they dreamed of changing the world. Ethan Caldwell, the 34-year-old white American man who had broken her heart a decade ago, was about to walk through that door. This moment, this storm, this hospital room, was the beginning of a story that would change everything. What would you do if the past you'd buried walked back into your life at your most fragile moment? Comment below and share your thoughts. Your voice keeps this story alive. If Maya's strength resonates with you, give this a like and hit subscribe to join us for the next chapter of her journey. Let's see where this night takes her. The labor room door swung open with a soft creak, and time seemed to pause, the air thick with the weight of a decade's worth of unspoken words. Dr. Ethan Caldwell stood in the doorway of room 2D847, his green scrubs crisp, his blonde hair touched with silver at the temples, but those blue eyes impossibly blue were the same ones that had once held Maya Thompson's dreams. His clipboard slipped from his hands, clattering to the linoleum floor, the sound sharp against the hum of medical equipment. "Maya," he said, her name escaping like a breath he'd been holding for years, a mix of shock and something deeper, something that made her chest tighten. Maya gripped the bed rails, her knuckles straining as another contraction surged, grounding her in the present. She wanted to disappear, to sink into the hospital bed and escape the sight of him. Ethan, the man who had walked away from their love 10 years ago at Columbia University. She was exposed, her body racked with pain, her hospital gown thin and unflattering, her pride battered by the vulnerability of labor. This couldn't be happening, not now, not when she needed strength most for the child she was about to bring into the world alone. Her silver bracelet caught the light, a cruel reminder of his broken promises. Ethan recovered quickly, his professional mask slipping into place. He retrieved the clipboard, his movements deliberate, and approached the bed. "I'm Dr. Caldwell," he said, his voice steady but quieter than she remembered. "I'll be delivering your baby tonight." The formality stung, as if a white coat and a stethoscope could erase their history. Maya's eyes burned, but she refused to let tears fall. She'd learned long ago that showing weakness only invited more pain, a lesson Ethan himself had taught her when he left without a backward glance. The contraction passed, leaving her gasping, and she met his gaze. His eyes flickered with recognition, a silent acknowledgement of the life they'd once planned together. Late nights debating social justice, stolen kisses in the library stacks, dreams of a future where they'd bridge their different worlds. But that was before his father's expectations, before the weight of old Boston money and a suitable match named Elizabeth had pulled him away. Now, here he was, standing over her in the most intimate, terrifying moment of her life, his hands poised to guide her child into the world. "Ethan," she whispered, the name ablaze, sharp and familiar. She wanted to demand why he was here, in Seattle, in her hospital room, but another contraction stole her words. He was at her side instantly, his hands gentle but sure as he adjusted the fetal monitor, his touch achingly familiar despite the years. He said, breathing through it, "Maya," his voice low and professional, but with an undercurrent of something softer, something that made her heart lurch. She hated that she noticed, hated that his presence could still unsettle her. The nurse, Sarah Johnson, bustled into the room, her graying hair pulled into a practical bun, her name tag gleaming under the fluorescent lights. She looked at the tension between doctor and patient and raised an eyebrow, her warm eyes sharp with understanding. "Everything okay here, Dr. Caldwell?" she asked, her tone neutral but probing. Ethan nodded, stepping back to consult his chart, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. He said, "We're at 7 centimeters, not meeting Maya's eyes, and moving quickly." Sarah positioned herself beside Maya, adjusting the blanket with a maternal ease that felt like a lifeline. "You're doing great, sweetheart," she said, her voice a soothing contrast to the storm outside and within. Maya managed a weak nod, her fingers tracing the silver bracelet, its cool metal grounding her. She couldn't look at Ethan, couldn't bear the weight of his gaze, but she felt it, heavy and searching, as if he too were grappling with the ghosts of their past. As the medical team prepared for the next stage of labor, Maya's mind flashed to their final night together, a decade ago in their cramped apartment near Columbia's campus. Ethan had paced, his hands running through his blonde hair, the acceptance letter to Johns Hopkins Medical School lying between them like a guillotine. He'd said he needed space, that medical school and long-distance love couldn't coexist, that they were too young for forever. But she'd known the truth even then. His father's voice, cold and commanding, had already mapped out his future, one that didn't include a scholarship kid from Oakland. Ethan said, "Maya, focus on your breathing," pulling her back to the present. His voice was clinical, but his hands trembled slightly as he checked the monitor, a crack in his professional armor. She wanted to scream at him, to demand answers, but the pain and the urgency of the moment held her silent. This wasn't the time for old wounds. Her baby needed her strength, her focus. Yet, as Ethan moved with practiced efficiency, she saw glimpses of the boy she'd loved, the one who'd promised to open free clinics, to fight for those the world overlooked, just as she'd fought to rise above her circumstances through journalism. The storm outside intensified, rain hammering the windows, and in room 2847, two hearts that had once beaten as one stood on opposite sides of a decade-long chasm. Could they bridge it, even briefly, to bring new life into the world? What would you do if someone who broke your heart reappeared at your most vulnerable hour? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights light up this story. If Maya's courage in facing this moment moves you, hit that like button and subscribe to follow her journey through this night of reckoning. The labor room in Seattle General Hospital pulsed with a quiet urgency, the beeping of the fetal monitor a steady counterpoint to the storm raging outside. Maya Thompson clung to the bed rails, her breath ragged as another contraction gripped her body, each wave of pain stripping away another layer of the armor she'd built over a decade. Her silver bracelet slid against her wrist, a constant reminder of the man standing just feet away. Dr. Ethan Caldwell's green scrubs starkly contrast with the memories flooding her mind. His presence was a wound reopened, yet his steady hands, adjusting the monitor with clinical precision, were the only thing anchoring her in this moment. "Breathe, Maya. Slow and steady," Ethan said, his voice calm, but laced with a warmth that felt too familiar, too dangerous. She wanted to push him away, to demand he leave, but the pain demanded her focus, and his expertise was undeniable. She bit her lip, refusing to cry out, her pride a fragile shield against the vulnerability of labor and the shock of seeing him again. 10 years ago, at Columbia University, they'd been inseparable. Two dreamers plotting to change the world, she through journalism, he through medicine. But his father's expectations, rooted in wealth and tradition, had torn them apart, leaving her to rebuild alone. Nurse Sarah Johnson, her graying hair tucked into a neat bun, moved with practiced grace, checking the IV line and offering a warm smile. She said, "You're doing beautifully, sweetheart," her voice a soothing balm. Sarah's eyes flicked to Ethan, then to Maya, catching the unspoken tension that crackled like static. "We're at 8 centimeters now, not long until you meet your little one." Her maternal presence was a lifeline, grounding Maya when the past threatened to pull her under. As the contraction ebbed, Maya's gaze drifted to Ethan, who was reviewing her chart with unnecessary intensity. His hands, which had once traced her face under starlit skies, trembled slightly. She hated that she noticed, hated that she could still read him after all these years. "Why are you here, Ethan?" The question slipped out, sharp and unguarded, before she could stop it. His head snapped up, blue eyes meeting hers, and for a moment, the professional mask slipped, revealing a flicker of regret. "I work here, Maya," he said softly, but his tone carried more than a job description. "I'm here to make sure you and your baby are safe." The words were professional, but how he said her name felt like a confession, stirring memories of late-night talks about opening free clinics and promises to defy the odds. She wanted to believe he was just a doctor doing his job, but the weight of their history made that impossible. Sensing the shift, Sarah pulled a chair beside the bed, her movements deliberate. "Let's focus on you, Maya," she said, adjusting the monitor with gentle hands. "Tell me something to keep your mind off the pain. What's the best story you've ever written?" The question was a deft distraction, and Maya seized it, needing an anchor beyond Ethan's gaze. "I wrote a piece for the Seattle Tribune last year," she said, her voice steadier than she felt about families in the Central District losing homes to gentrification. "I interviewed a grandmother who'd lived there for 50 years, forced out by rising rents. Her story, it changed how I saw resilience." The memory grounded her, reminding her of the strength she'd found in her work, amplifying voices like her own from Oakland's struggling neighborhoods. Sarah nodded, her eyes warm with understanding. "That's powerful. Sounds like you've got a gift for telling stories that matter." She glanced at Ethan, who was listening silently, his expression unreadable. "Sometimes, stories from the past need telling too. Helps make sense of the present." Maya's breath caught. She hadn't spoken of Ethan to anyone, not even her sister, in years. But Sarah's empathy cracked something open. "We were together at Columbia," she said quietly, the words rusty. "I was a scholarship kid, scraping by. He was different. His family had plans for him, a fancy medical career, a wife from their world. I wasn't part of that plan." Her voice tightened, the memory of their breakup sharp, Ethan pacing their tiny apartment, his acceptance letter to Johns Hopkins a death knell, his father's voice louder than their love. Sarah squeezed her hand. "That sounds like a heavy load to carry." Her words were simple, but carried the weight of someone who'd seen countless dramas unfold in these rooms. Sometimes people come back into our lives for a reason, even if it's messy. Another contraction hit, fiercer than before, and Maya gripped the rails, breathing through the pain as Sarah coached her. Ethan stepped closer, his hands steady as he monitored the baby's heart rate. "You're doing great, Maya," he said, his voice a mix of doctor and something more, something that made her heart ache. She caught his eye, and for a split second, she saw the boy who'd promised they'd find a way, despite their different worlds. That boy had lied. But this man, this doctor, was here, saving her and her child. The room seemed to shrink, the storm outside fading to a distant roar. Maya was caught between the past and the now, between pain responsible for her body and the pain responsible for her heart. Could she trust Ethan's presence, or was it just another fleeting promise? Have you ever faced a moment where the past and present collided, forcing you to choose between holding on and letting go? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. If Maya's struggle resonates, hit like and subscribe to follow her through this emotional journey. What's next in room 2847? The labor room's sterile hum was a fragile anchor against the storm outside Seattle General Hospital, where rain lashed the windows like a restless spirit. Maya Thompson gripped the bed rails, her body trembling as another contraction surged, each one a relentless tide eroding her defenses. Her silver bracelet, a decade-old tether to a past she'd tried to bury, glinted under the fluorescent lights. Dr. Ethan Caldwell stood at the foot of the bed, his blue eyes scanning the fetal monitor with a focus that belied the tremor in his hands. The air between them crackled with unspoken history, a decade of silence now forced into the open by the urgency of this moment. "You're at 8 centimeters, Maya," Ethan said, his voice steady but softer than his professional demeanor demanded. "The baby's heart rate stabilizes, but we must keep monitoring." His words were clinical, yet how he said her name carried a weight that tightened her chest. She wanted to hate him, to armor herself against the memories his presence stirred. Late nights at Columbia University, dreaming of a shared future, only for him to choose his family's expectations over hers. But his competence, his gentle touch, made that hate feel like a luxury she couldn't afford. Nurse Sarah Johnson, her graying hair tucked neatly under a cap, moved with quiet efficiency, adjusting the IV drip. Her warm eyes caught Maya's, offering a silent reassurance. Sarah said, "You're strong, sweetheart," her voice a soothing counterpoint to the pain. "This little one's lucky to have you fighting for them." She glanced at Ethan, then back to Maya, her expression sharpening with the intuition of someone who'd witnessed countless human dramas in these rooms. Dr. Caldwell's one of the best. Been here 3 years, saving lives like it's his calling. But he's carrying something heavy, isn't he? Maya's breath hitched, not just from the contraction, but from Sarah's perceptiveness. She nodded slightly, her fingers tracing the bracelet's familiar links. "He wasn't always a doctor," she murmured, the words slipping out as the pain ebbed. Sarah tilted her head, inviting more, and Maya found herself speaking, the vulnerability of labor loosening her guard. "We planned a life together once. He wanted to open free clinics and help people like the ones I grew up with in Oakland. But his family, they had other plans, a different kind of life and wife." Sarah's eyes softened with understanding. "Sounds like he chose the path laid out for him," she said, checking the monitor. "But paths have a way of circling back." Before Maya could respond, a sharp beep from the hallway interrupted, and Ethan's head snapped up. "Room 2851, emergency C-section," a voice called through the door. Ethan's jaw tightened, his gaze lingering on Maya for a heartbeat longer than necessary. "I'll be back soon," he said, his voice low. "Sarah's got you." As Ethan left, the room seemed to exhale, the tension easing slightly. Sarah pulled a chair closer, her movements deliberate. "You want to know something about Dr. Caldwell?" she asked, her tone conspiratorial but kind. Maya hesitated, then nodded, curiosity overriding her defenses. Sarah said he came to Seattle General after his divorce, and her hands were busy with routine tasks. 5 years married to a woman named Elizabeth, his father's pick. Polished, connected, everything a Boston blue blood should be. But it fell apart. He doesn't talk about it, but you see it in how he works. Double shifts, taking the most challenging cases, like he's trying to outrun something. Maya's heart stuttered. She'd seen Ethan years ago at a medical conference in Chicago, covering healthcare reform for the Tribune. He'd been polished then, a wedding band glinting on his finger as he spoke on high-risk pregnancies. She'd stayed hidden in the back, unable to face him. Now, noticing his bare ring finger, the absence hit her like a sharp, unexpected, disorienting contraction. "Divorced," she whispered, more to herself than Sarah. "What happened?" Sarah shrugged, her eyes thoughtful. "Not my story to tell, but I've seen him stare at old photos, like he's trying to piece together what he lost. He's brilliant and compassionate, but there's a sadness there, like a man who knows he made the wrong choice. She paused, adjusting the blanket over Maya's legs. And tonight, seeing you, it's like that sadness cracked open. Another contraction built, and Maya gripped Sarah's hand, breathing through the pain as Sarah coached her with steady words. When it passed, Maya's mind churned. Divorced and haunted, Ethan was no longer the untouchable figure she'd imagined, married to a perfect society wife. But the pain of his betrayal lingered, his choice to walk away, to let his father's expectations dictate their future. Could a man who'd run from love once be trusted now, even if he was saving her and her child? Ethan returned. His scrubs changed, and there was a faint tightness around his eyes, suggesting the emergency had been grueling. He said that the mother and baby are stable, washing his hands at the sink. His voice was professional, but Maya caught a flicker of exhaustion, of vulnerability mirrored in hers. "You're progressing well, Maya," he added, checking the monitor. "Not much longer now." Sarah caught Maya's eye, offering a small smile. "You've got this," she said, her tone carrying a more profound meaning, strength for the birth, and perhaps for facing the man who stood before her. Maya nodded, her fingers brushing the bracelet. Ethan's presence was a complication she hadn't prepared for, but her baby needed her focus. The past could wait. Her future was arriving soon. What would you do if the person who shaped your past stood before you, holding your future in their hands? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your stories fuel this journey. If Maya's courage in facing her pain inspires you, hit like and subscribe to see how her story unfolds in this charged hospital room. The labor room in Seattle General Hospital thrummed with controlled chaos, the storm outside a distant roar as Maya Thompson's world narrowed to the searing intensity of her contractions. The fetal monitor's steady beep anchored her, its rhythm a lifeline amidst the pain that tore through her like a wildfire. Her silver bracelet slid against her wrist, a quiet reminder of the past, but the present demanded everything: her strength, focus, and heart. Dr. Ethan Caldwell stood at the foot of the bed, his green scrubs taut across his shoulders, his blue eyes locked on the monitor with a focus that belied the history crackling between them. Nurse Sarah Johnson, her presence a warm constant, coached Maya through each wave, her voice a steady guide in the storm. "You're at 10 centimeters, Maya," Ethan announced, his tone calm but thick with an undercurrent of emotion. "It's time to push." His hands moved with practiced precision, preparing for the delivery, but Maya caught the slight tremble in his fingers, a crack in his professional armor. She gripped the bed rails, her body screaming, her mind a tangle of fear and resolve. This was it, the moment she'd both dreaded and longed for. The birth of her child, with the man who'd broken her heart a decade ago guiding her through it. Sarah leaned in, her graying hair catching the light. She said, "You've got this, sweetheart," her hand warm on Maya's shoulder. "One push at a time. Let's meet your baby." Maya nodded, drawing on reserve she didn't know she had, her journalist's tenacity now channeled into this primal act. She pushed, the pain a white-hot crescendo, her breath ragged but determined. Ethan's voice cut through, steady and sure. "Long, constant pressure, Maya. You're doing amazing." His encouragement felt like a lifeline, but also stirred memories of late nights at Columbia, his whispers of a shared future, and promises shattered by his choice to walk away. The room transformed into a symphony of urgency. Additional nurses appeared, their movements choreographed, the overhead lights blazing brighter, casting everything in sharp relief. Maya pushed again, her body straining, her heart exposed in a way that terrified her. Ethan's hands were ready, his focus absolute, But when their eyes met briefly, she saw something raw, a flicker of the young man who'd traced constellations on her skin and dreamed of free clinics in underserved communities. That boy was gone, replaced by this doctor. Yet the connection lingered, unbidden and undeniable. "I see the head," Ethan said, his voice thick, almost breaking. "Dark curls, Maya. One more big push." His words carried a wonder that echoed their college days, when he'd spoken of medicine with awe, a calling they'd both believed in. Maya bore down, summoning every ounce of strength, the pain transcending physical boundaries, becoming something almost spiritual. The room held its breath, and then a thin, reedy cry pierced the silence, growing stronger, more indignant, a sound that changed everything. "It's a boy," Ethan whispered, his voice reverent as he gently lifted the newborn, his hands steady despite the emotion in his eyes. He placed the baby on Maya's chest, warm and slippery, his tiny fists waving in protest at the bright, cold world. Maya's tears fell freely now, not from pain, but overwhelming love. "Hello, little one," she murmured, her voice trembling. "I'm your mama." Noah James Thompson, perfect and fierce, nestled against her, his cries the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. Ethan stepped back, giving her space, but Maya caught his expression, raw, unguarded, a mix of awe and something more profound that looked like longing. He was seeing her, not just as a patient, but as the woman he'd once loved, now a mother. Sarah bustled around, cleaning and weighing Noah, 8 pounds, 2 ounces, 21 inches long. "Perfect," she said with a smile, her eyes glistening. Maya traced her son's face, noting her stubborn chin, the curve of his nose, and eyes that held a depth she couldn't yet fathom. "Does he have a name?" Sarah asked, updating the chart. Maya hesitated, the weight of the moment settling over her. "Noah James," she said softly, the name she'd carried for months now, feeling momentous. Ethan's hands stilled on his equipment, his gaze flicking to her, a question unspoken. James, his middle name. She hadn't planned it consciously, but it felt right, a quiet nod to the man who'd brought her son safely into the world, even if their past was a minefield. Sarah repeated the name, her voice warm. "Noah means rest, peace, beautiful choice." Maya held Noah closer, his rapid heartbeat against her chest, a reminder of the life she'd fought for. Ethan's presence loomed, a complication she wasn't ready to face. The boy she'd loved had lied, choosing his family's path over their dreams, but this man had delivered her son with care and skill. Could she separate the two? The room grew quiet, the storm outside fading, leaving only the soft sound of Noah's breathing and the weight of choices yet to be made. Have you ever faced a moment where new beginnings collided with old wounds? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your stories bring this journey to life. If Maya's transformation into motherhood moves you, hit like and subscribe to follow her and Noah through this pivotal night. What lies ahead for her and Ethan? The maternity ward of Seattle General Hospital settled into a hushed reverence at 3 a.m., the sterile silence broken only by the soft beeps of monitors and the distant hum of a city sleeping. Maya Thompson lay propped against pillows in room 2847, her body aching from the ordeal of labor, her heart complete with the weight of her newborn son, Noah James, sleeping in the clear bassinet beside her. His tiny chest rose and fell with a rhythm of innocence, untouched by the doubts and disappointments Maya had carried for years. Her silver bracelet glinted in the dim light of a bedside lamp, a quiet tether to a past that still lingered in the room, embodied by Dr. Ethan Caldwell, who had just delivered her child. Maya's eyes traced Noah's features, her stubborn chin, the delicate curve of his ears, the way his fingers curled, as if grasping something from the world he'd left behind. The sight of him grounded her, but it also stirred a deep fear rooted in the fractured family she'd grown up in. Her mother, Lorraine, a nurse's aide who'd worked grueling shifts in Oakland, had raised Maya and her sister alone after their father walked out when Maya was 6. His absence was a shadow that lingered, reinforced by Lorraine's bitter refrain. "You were too much trouble, too needy." Those words had carved a wound in Maya, a fear that she, too, might fail her child, that Noah might one day feel unworthy of love. The memory of her mother's disapproval hit harder now. When Maya had told Lorraine about her pregnancy, the response was a cold, "You're throwing your life away, just like I did." The words echoed as Maya stared at Noah, vowing silently that he would never doubt his worth. Her journalism career, built on amplifying the voices of the marginalized, had been her way of proving her value. Still, motherhood felt like a new battlefield, one with higher stakes than any story she'd ever written. Nurse Sarah Johnson entered quietly, her graying hair tucked under a cap, her warm eyes scanning the monitors with practiced care. "How are we doing, sweetheart?" she whispered, checking Noah's vitals without disturbing his sleep. Her presence was a comfort, a maternal warmth Maya had rarely known from her mother. "Like I've been hit by a truck," Maya said, managing a weak smile. "But a beautiful truck." Sarah chuckled softly, settling into the visitor's chair. "That's motherhood. Overwhelming, wonderful, terrifying, all at once." Maya nodded, her fingers brushing the bracelet, its cool metal a reminder of Ethan and the promises he'd broken a decade ago. Sarah's gaze followed the gesture, her intuition sharp. "That bracelet means something," she asked gently. Maya hesitated, then spoke, the quiet of the ward loosening her guard. "It's from college, from him," she said, glancing at the door where Ethan had last stood. "But it's not just about him. It's about me, too. About not repeating the mistakes my family made." Sarah tilted her head, inviting more. "My father left when I was 6, Maya continued, her voice low. "No warning, no goodbye. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat, but she never let me forget it was my fault he left. When I got pregnant, she said I was making the same mistake she did, trusting a man who wouldn't stay. I swore Noah would never feel like I did, like he wasn't enough." Her voice cracked, and she looked at her son, his peaceful sleep contrasting with her turmoil. Sarah squeezed her hand, her touch steady. "I raised my daughter alone too," she said. "Her father walked out when she was 2. I was angry for years, and I thought I had to be everything. Mother, father, provider. Took me a long time to realize I didn't have to be perfect, just present. You're here, Maya, fighting for Noah. That's what breaks the cycle." Her words were a lifeline, easing the weight of Lorraine's judgment and Maya's fear of failing her son. The door creaked, and Ethan stepped back into the room. His scrubs changed, his face etched with the weariness of the emergency C-section he'd just performed. "Everything stable here?" he asked, his voice professional but soft, his eyes lingering on Maya and Noah. Sarah nodded, rising smoothly. "All good, Dr. Caldwell. I'll give you 2 a moment." She slipped out, leaving a charged silence in her wake. Ethan carefully approached the bassinet, his movements as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace. "He's beautiful," he said, his voice catching on Noah's name. Maya watched him, noting the tenderness in his gaze, the same look he'd had when they dreamed of a future together. "Thank you," she said, the words inadequate for the complexity of the moment. His skill, his presence, the pain of their past. She wanted to ask about his life, his divorce, the sadness Sarah had hinted at, but the weight of her own family's shadows held her back. Could she protect Noah from the pain she'd known, even with Ethan standing before her, a reminder of love's fragility? Have you ever vowed to break a family pattern, only to face the ghosts of your past? Share your story in the comments. Your experiences light up this narrative. If Maya's resolve to give Noah a better future resonates, hit like and subscribe to follow her journey through motherhood and memory. The maternity ward of Seattle General Hospital was a cocoon of quiet at dawn, the soft light filtering through the window, casting gentle shadows across room 2847. Maya Thompson sat propped against pillows, her body heavy with the ache of childbirth, her heart tethered to the tiny form of her newborn son, Noah James, sleeping peacefully in his bassinet. His small breaths were a rhythm of hope, starkly contrasting the turmoil swirling within her. The silver bracelet on her wrist caught the faint glow, a reminder of a past that had collided with her present in the form of Dr. Ethan Caldwell, who had delivered Noah just hours ago. As the world outside stirred awake, a new complication loomed, threatening the fragile peace she'd found in motherhood. Maya's phone buzzed on the bedside table, the screen lighting up with a name she hadn't expected. Derek. Her ex-boyfriend, the father of her child, had vanished 3 months ago, leaving her to navigate pregnancy alone. She stared at the screen, her fingers hesitating, the weight of his abandonment still raw. Lorraine, her mother, had warned her about men like Derek, men who ran when life got heavy, just like her father had. But Noah deserved to know his father, even if Maya's trust was in tatters. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice carefully neutral. Derek. Avery, baby, I've been trying to reach you. Derek's voice came through smoothly, but tinged with urgency. My phone was disconnected, and I was traveling for work. Is the baby born? The words cut through her like a blade, his absence now a glaring void. Your son was born 3 days ago, she said, her tone clipped. 8 pounds, 2 ounces. Healthy. His name is Noah James. Silence stretched across the line, long enough that she wondered if the call had dropped. Then, a note of emotion, perhaps genuine. A son. Noah. That's a strong name. Is he okay? He's perfect, Maya said, glancing at Noah, his tiny fist curled against his cheek. Where are you, Derek? He cleared his throat. Portland, but I can be there by tonight. I want to see him, Maya. I want to see my son. The possessive pronoun rankled, but she pushed down her irritation. I'm being discharged this afternoon. We'll be at my apartment. Derek's voice brightened, too eager. I found a place in Bellevue, 3 bedrooms, a yard, good schools. Perfect for us, for a family. The word us felt like a trap, a promise she couldn't trust after his months of silence. Before she could respond, a soft knock interrupted. Ethan stood in the doorway, no longer in scrubs, but in jeans and a navy sweater, his blonde hair slightly tousled, his blue eyes softer than she remembered. Seeing him sent an unwelcome jolt through her, a mix of resentment and something she refused to name. I'm sorry, he said, glancing at the phone. I can come back. Maya covered the receiver, her voice firm. No, it's fine. Just finishing up. But Derek's voice carried through, sharp with suspicion. Maya, who's there? Is that another man? Her cheeks warmed, and she ended the call abruptly. I have to go, Derek. We'll talk when you get here. She set the phone down, feeling Ethan's unasked questions like a weight. The father? He asked, his tone carefully neutral, as he moved to check Noah's chart. Maya nodded, her voice tinged with bitterness. He's decided he wants to play dad now that the hard part's over. Ethan's hands stilled, his jaw tightening. And what do you want, Maya? The question caught her off guard, piercing through the fog of exhaustion and emotion. No one had asked her that, not her mother, Derek, or even her sister. She looked at Noah, his peaceful sleep a reminder of her new reality. I want what's best for Noah, she said finally, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. I want him to grow up knowing he's loved unconditionally. I want him never to doubt his worth, the way I... She stopped. The confession too raw, the memory of her father's abandonment, and her mother's blame too close. Ethan's eyes softened, a recognition that made her heart constrict. The way you did, he finished gently, as if he'd always known. He stepped closer, his hands shoved into his pockets, his voice low. Maya, I know this is complicated, and I have no right to, but if you need medical advice or a call about Noah in the middle of the night, I'm here, day or night. The offer was professional and appropriate, but he said it felt more like a bridge across the chasm of their past. She studied him, noting the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of regret Sarah had hinted at. Could she trust this man, who'd walked away from her a decade ago, to be here now? Derek's promises echoed in her mind, hollow against Ethan's quiet sincerity. The room felt smaller, charged with the weight of choices, past and present. Noah stirred, making a soft sound, and both adults held their breath until he settled, a reminder of the life that now bound them all. Have you ever faced a moment where old promises clashed with new responsibilities? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your stories shape this journey. If Maya's struggle to balance trust and love tugs at you, hit like and subscribe to follow her path through this tangled web of relationships. The dim glow of a single lamp illuminated Maya Thompson's cramped Capitol Hill apartment, its one-bedroom walls closing in as she paced with her 2-week-old son, Noah James, cradled against her shoulder. His cries, relentless for hours, pierced the stillness of the 3 a.m. hour, a stark contrast to the peaceful newborn she'd held in Seattle General Hospital. Noah's dark curls were damp with fussiness, his tiny fists clenched as if protesting the world's injustices. Maya's body ached, her breasts sore from nursing, her head pounding from sleepless nights. The silver bracelet on her wrist, a relic of a past love, felt heavier tonight, a reminder of the strength she'd once had but now struggled to find. She'd tried everything the parenting book suggested: feeding, changing, rocking, even a desperate lullaby hummed off-key. Noah's wails only grew louder, his curious eyes, now wide with distress, reflecting a temperament as stubborn as hers. Maya's journalism career, once her anchor, felt like a distant memory. The awards for her stories on healthcare disparities and the late nights crafting narratives of resilience seemed irrelevant against the raw reality of motherhood. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. You're throwing your life away. And for the first time, Maya wondered if she was right or failing Noah already. Exhaustion cracked her resolve, and tears welled as she whispered, "Please, baby, tell me what you need." The words were a plea, surrendering to the fear that she wasn't enough. Her phone buzzed on the cluttered coffee table, and she grabbed it, hands trembling. The screen showed Ethan Caldwell's name, a jolt of surprise cutting through her fog. She'd saved his number after his hospital offer, day or night, but hadn't expected to use it. "Ethan," she said, her voice breaking despite her effort to sound composed. "Maya, I'm sorry to call so late." Ethan's voice was alert, tinged with concern. "I was finishing rounds and thought of you and Noah. Are you okay? You sound..." He trailed off, and Maya's sob escaped before she could stop it. "I'm not okay," she admitted, the confession raw. "Noah won't stop crying, and I'm..." I'm drowning. I don't know what I'm doing. The admission felt like defeat, but Ethan's response was immediate. I'm coming over. 20 minutes. No, Ethan, it's 3 a.m., she protested, but he cut her off, his tone firm. I'm coming. The line went dead, leaving Maya staring at her phone, Noah's cries echoing off the walls. Part of her wanted to call back, to insist she could handle this alone, but a larger part, worn thin by sleep deprivation, felt a flood of relief. Someone was coming. Someone cared. True to his word, Ethan arrived at her door, still in hospital scrubs, a small bag slung over his shoulder. His blonde hair was disheveled, his blue eyes shadowed with fatigue, but his presence was steady, grounding. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward Noah. Maya handed her son over, a mix of gratitude and shame washing over her. Ethan began a gentle, swaying motion, a complex dance that spoke directly to Noah's distress. "It's called the colic hold," he explained softly, his voice low to avoid startling the baby. "Sometimes they get overstimulated, and this calms their nervous system." Noah's cries softened to hiccups within minutes, his tiny body relaxing against Ethan's chest. Maya watched, stunned, as her son's eyes fluttered closed, his breathing steadying into sleep. The sudden silence felt almost sacred, a reprieve she hadn't thought possible. "How did you—" she started, her voice trailing off in awe. Ethan smiled, a gentle curve that reminded her of their college days, medical school, residency, and many colicky babies. Plus, sometimes a fresh pair of arms helps. He can sense your exhaustion. The observation stung, though she knew it wasn't meant to wound. "So I'm making it worse by being tired?" she asked, sinking onto the couch, her unwashed hair in a messy bun, milk stains on her pajama top. Ethan settled into an armchair, Noah still asleep against him. "You're not making it worse by being human," he said, his tone firm but kind. "You've been doing this alone for 2 weeks. Cut yourself some slack, Maya. You're not failing. You're devoted." His words hit her like a lifeline, easing the weight of her self-doubt. She studied him, noting the tenderness in how he held Noah and the careful way he supported her son's head. Then, unprompted, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "After my divorce, I felt like I was failing too. 5 years married to Elizabeth, trying to be the man my father wanted, but I was empty. I threw myself into work to escape the loneliness, but it never left." His eyes met hers, raw and vulnerable. "Seeing you with Noah, I see strength, not failure." Maya's heart lurched, the confession stirring hope she wasn't ready to embrace. Could she trust this man, who'd walked away from her a decade ago, to be here now? Derek's absence loomed. His work emergency in Portland felt like an excuse. Ethan's unasked for, yet unwavering presence was a contrast she couldn't ignore. The room grew quiet, Noah's peaceful breathing the only sound. As Maya grappled with the flicker of possibility, Ethan's words ignited. "Have you ever felt overwhelmed by a new role, only to find unexpected support? Share your story in the comments. Your experiences bring this tale to life." If Maya's struggle and Ethan's quiet strength resonate, hit like and subscribe to follow their journey through this sleepless night. The late afternoon light filtered through the window of Maya Thompson's Capitol Hill apartment, casting a warm glow over the cramped space, now cluttered with baby gear. Noah James, her 2-week-old son, slept in his portable bassinet, his dark curls framing a face finally at peace after another restless night. Maya stood in the tiny kitchenette, folding and refolding a stack of onesies, her hands restless as she braced for Derek's arrival. Her silver bracelet glinted, a quiet reminder of a past in the form of Dr. Ethan Caldwell, whose late-night visit had calmed Noah and stirred something dangerous in her heart. But today was about Derek, the man who'd left her alone during her pregnancy, now claiming he wanted to be a father. A knock came at 6:30 p.m., sharp and tentative. Maya took a deep breath, smoothing her hair, and opened the door. Derek stood in the hallway, tall and dark-haired, his easy smile the same one that had charmed her at a journalism conference 2 years ago. He held a bouquet of lilies and an expensive baby carrier, his eyes softening as they met hers. "Maya," he said, his voice gentler than she'd expected. He moved to hug her, and she allowed it, though she kept the embrace brief, her body stiff with guarded caution. "Hey, Derek," she replied, stepping back to let him in. His gaze immediately found Noah in the bassinet, and his expression shifted, wonder mixed with a flicker of fear. "Can I?" he asked, gesturing toward the baby. Maya nodded, lifting Noah carefully, his tiny body stirring but not waking as she transferred him to Derek's arms. Derek held his son with awkward care, his face transforming with an emotion so raw it almost softened Maya's resolve. "He's so small," he whispered, his voice thick. "God, Maya, he's perfect." For a moment, watching him hold Noah, she could almost remember why she'd fallen for him. His charm, confidence, the promise of stability after years of fleeting relationships. But charm wasn't enough. "What took you so long, Derek?" A sharp and unfiltered question slipped out as she crossed her arms. His eyes flicked up, guilt shadowing his features. "I was scared," he admitted, his voice low as he rocked Noah gently. "When you told me you were pregnant, all I could think about was my dad. He was never around, always working, always resenting us for tying him down. I didn't want to be him, so I ran." He paused, his gaze dropping to Noah. "My mom got wind of it, called me out, and said I was turning into him anyway. That's why I came back." Maya's heart clenched, not with sympathy, but with clarity. "So you're here because your mom shamed you?" Her tone was even, but the question cut deep. Derek winced, his hold on Noah tightening protectively. "It's not just that," he said, his voice earnest. "I met someone in Portland. It wasn't serious, just a distraction. I was trying to prove I could walk away and wasn't ready for this." He gestured to Noah, to the apartment, to her. "But I realized running doesn't change anything. You were still pregnant, and I would still be a father, whether I wanted it or not." The confession hit like a cold wave, not heartbreak, but relief. Derek's return wasn't about love or genuine commitment, guilt, societal expectations, and proving he wasn't his father. "So what does doing this right look like to you?" she asked, her voice steady as she leaned against the counter. Derek's eyes lit up, too eager. "I found a place in Bellevue. 3 bedrooms, a yard, good schools. I can provide for you both, Maya. You wouldn't have to worry about money, about anything. We could be a family." The offer hung between them, practical but suffocating. Maya saw the life he painted. Suburban, secure, conventional. Everything her mother had urged her to want. Everything society said single mothers should grasp. But it felt hollow, built on obligation rather than connection. "What about love, Derek?" she asked quietly, her eyes locked on his. He looked confused, as if the question was unexpected. "I love you, Maya. I've always loved you." She stepped closer, searching his face. "Do you? Or do you love being the man who does the right thing?" "Because there's a difference." Noah fussed, sensing the tension, and Derek's awkward bouncing failed to soothe him. Maya took her son, his cries quieting against her familiar warmth. Derek's shoulders slumped, his voice small. "I don't know how to do this, Maya. I don't know how to be a father." She met his gaze, her anger softening but not gone. "Neither do I," she said. "Nobody does. You learn by showing up, every day, especially when it's hard." The words were as much for herself as for him, a reminder of the vow she'd made to Noah, to break the cycle of abandonment she'd known. Silence settled, heavy with the weight of their choices. Outside, Seattle's evening hum, traffic, distant sirens, continued, indifferent to their small drama. Derek looked at his empty hands, then at Noah. "I want to try," he said finally. "I know I screwed up, but I want to be in his life. In yours, if you'll let me." Maya held Noah closer, his heartbeat grounding her. She saw Derek for what he was, not a villain, but a man driven by fear, not love. Her future, Noah's future, deserved more. What would you do when someone's return feels more like duty than devotion? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspectives light up this story. If Maya's choice to prioritize love over obligation resonates, hit like and subscribe to follow her journey through this pivotal moment. The Pine Street coffee shop buzzed with the hum of early morning Seattle, its windows fogged with steam, as baristas called orders over the clink of ceramic mugs. Maya Thompson sat at a corner table, her notebook open, her pen tapping rhythmically as she jotted notes for a Seattle Tribune story. Noah James, her 2-month-old son, nestled in a carrier against her chest, his curious eyes tracking the movement around them. His dark curls had grown fuller, his once fussy demeanor now softened into alert contentment. Maya's silver bracelet caught the light, a quiet reminder of a past that had reemerged in the form of Dr. Ethan Caldwell, whose steady presence had become a surprising anchor in her new life as a mother. Across from her, Jamal, her childhood friend from Oakland, bounced his knee, his easy grin a comfort amidst her whirlwind of emotions. "You look like you again, Maya," he said, sipping his latte. "Sleep's a game changer, huh?" She nodded, a faint smile breaking through. 6 hours straight does wonders. Helps me feel human." She didn't mention that those hours were thanks to Ethan, who'd started stopping by her apartment in the evenings, holding Noah while she showered or napped, his quiet presence a balm she hadn't expected to rely on. Her latest assignment, a feature on a community health fair organized by Ethan's Free Clinic initiative, had reignited her passion for journalism. Her career, built on amplifying marginalized voices, had earned her accolades, including a regional award for a piece on healthcare disparities in the Central District. Today, she interviewed families at the fair, their stories of resilience echoing her journey. Mrs. Chen, a grandmother managing diabetes with expired insulin, and the Morales family, avoiding clinics due to immigration fears, reminded her why she'd chosen this path: to give voice to those the system overlooked, just as she'd fought to rise above her challenges. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Emergency at the hospital. Won't make it tonight. Call if you need anything." Disappointment tugged at her, surprising in its intensity. She'd grown accustomed to his evenings with her and Noah, their conversations weaving through mundane moments and more profound truths. Jamal noticed her expression shift. "The doctor?" he asked, his tone neutral but knowing. Maya nodded, tucking the phone away. "Yeah, work stuff." Before she could elaborate, she caught sight of Ethan through the coffee shop window, standing on the sidewalk in scrubs, his blonde hair catching the morning light. He was on a call, his posture tense, one hand running through his hair, a gesture she remembered from their Columbia days. "Isn't that him?" Jamal asked, following her gaze. "Thought he had an emergency." Maya frowned, standing. "I'll be right back." Outside, the air was crisp. Seattle's skyline emerging from the morning fog. Ethan ended his call, his shoulders slumping as he stared at the ground, lost in thought. Up close, Maya saw the exhaustion etched in his face, his blue eyes shadowed with something heavier than fatigue. "Hey," she said softly. "Everything okay?" He looked up, startled, his expression shifting to surprise, then something softer, almost longing. He said, "I lost a patient tonight," his voice flat, as if holding back a flood. 23, first baby. We did everything right, but sometimes... "I'm sorry," Maya said, the words inadequate, but all she had. Ethan's laugh was bitter. Her husband asked if I had missed something or could have done more. "The truth is, I've been distracted lately." His eyes met hers, the implication heavy. Maya's pulse quickened, sensing what he wasn't saying. "Ethan, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice firm about why I left you in Boston, about Elizabeth. The name hit like a stone, even after all these years. Through the window, Jamal watched, holding Noah, who remained calm in his arms. "Maya said you don't owe me explanations," but her voice lacked conviction. "Yes, I do," Ethan insisted. "I told you at the hospital I made the biggest mistake of my life. But that wasn't the whole truth. My father pushed me toward medical school, toward Elizabeth. But I could have fought that. I was 22, stubborn enough to think I could take on anything. But I was terrified of how much I loved you." Maya felt the ground shift, his words unraveling a decade of assumptions. "Terrified?" she echoed, her voice barely audible. Ethan's jaw worked. The words were hard-won. It was consuming Maya. I could see myself giving up everything. Medical school, my family's approval, the life I'd planned, to keep you. I thought a clean break, convincing myself it was practical, would let me move on. Took me 10 years to realize that was impossible. The confession hung between them, a bridge across years of misunderstanding. Before she could respond, her phone rang. Derek's name flashing on the screen, a reminder of the life she was still navigating. Ethan's eyes flickered to the phone, then back to her, a question unspoken. Maya silenced the call, her heart racing, caught between past promises and present possibilities. Have you ever faced a truth that reshaped your past? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your stories fuel this journey. If Maya's passion and Ethan's honesty resonate, hit like and subscribe to see where their paths lead next. 6 months had passed since Noah James's birth, and Maya Thompson's life had transformed in ways she hadn't dared imagine. Once a cramped refuge, her Capitol Hill apartment had given way to a 2-bedroom in Fremont, its sunny windows and extra space a haven for Noah's growing curiosity. Now 8 months old, Noah was a round-cheeked infant with a giggle that could melt the hardest heart, his dark curls bouncing as he reached for everything within grasp. Maya adjusted his carrier at the Beacon Hill Community Center, her press badge swinging as she navigated the bustling health fair, her notebook filled with stories of resilience for the Seattle Tribune. Her silver bracelet caught the light, a quiet reminder of a past that had woven itself into her present through Dr. Ethan Caldwell. The health fair, Ethan's brainchild, pulsed with energy, volunteers distributing flu shots, families lining up for free screenings, children chasing balloons. Maya's latest article focused on the initiative's impact, her interviews revealing the human cost of healthcare gaps, a single mother rationing asthma medication, a grandfather skipping checkups to afford rent. Her journalism, always her anchor, felt more vital than ever, echoing the dreams she and Ethan had shared at Columbia, using their work to lift the overlooked. Noah babbled in his carrier, his curious eyes tracking a passing nurse, and Maya smiled, her heart swelling with a love that grounded her through sleepless nights and lingering doubts. Ethan's presence had become a steady rhythm in their lives. He stopped by most evenings, his visits unintrusive but consistent, contrasting with Derek's fading promises. After his guilty return, Derek had retreated to Portland, sending support checks and occasional calls, but no longer pushing for a family that felt more like an obligation than love. Ethan, however, showed up, holding Noah during fussy evenings, grading medical charts while Maya napped, or simply sharing quiet conversations over coffee. Noah had taken to him, his tiny hands reaching for Ethan with a trust that warmed and unnerved Maya. Her walls, built over a decade of heartbreak, were crumbling, and the sensation was terrifying and liberating. At the health fair, Maya spotted Ethan at a corner booth, crouching to reassure a nervous child getting a vaccine. His blonde hair fell across his forehead, his blue eyes warm with patience, a smile breaking as the child giggled. The sight stirred memories of their college dreams, free clinics, a world made better together. She approached, Noah cooing, and Ethan stood, his face lighting up. "There's my favorite reporter," he said, lifting Noah from the carrier with practiced ease. Noah grabbed at Ethan's stethoscope, delighted, and Maya laughed. "And my favorite subject," she replied, pulling out her notebook. "This clinic's changing lives, Ethan. Mrs. Chen's getting her insulin now, and the Morales family feels safe coming here." Ethan's expression grew serious, his voice earnest. "That's why we do this. People deserve care without fear." He paused, bouncing Noah gently. "You're making that happen too, with your stories." The compliment landed softly, a reminder of their shared values. Maya hesitated, then asked, "How'd you get here, Ethan? After everything?" His gaze softened, and he glanced at Noah before answering. "After the divorce, I felt lost. Elizabeth deserved better than a husband who couldn't let go of the past. I volunteered in rural clinics and underserved areas to make up for my mistakes. Seattle General offered a chance to build something tangible, like we discussed back then." The admission hit Maya like a quiet wave, recontextualizing the man before her. He wasn't just the boy who'd left her. He was someone who'd faced his failures and chosen to grow. Nurse Sarah Johnson appeared beside them, her graying hair tucked under a cap, her warm eyes twinkling. "He's good with him," she said, nodding at Noah, who was tugging Ethan's sleeve. Sarah had become a friend, and visiting Maya's apartment was a source of wisdom and warmth. "Not just Noah," Maya replied, watching Ethan explain a blood pressure reading to an older woman in Spanish. "He's good with everyone." Sarah's smile turned knowing. "That's not what I meant. He looks at that baby like he's his own, and at you like you're his everything." She leaned closer, her voice gentle. "When will you stop being afraid of your happiness, Maya?" The question lingered, piercing through Maya's guarded heart. She'd spent years protecting herself from the pain Ethan had caused, from the abandonment her mother had warned her about. But watching Ethan with Noah, seeing the life they were slowly building, she felt a shift, a hope she wasn't ready to name but couldn't deny. The fair wound down, families dispersing, and Maya caught Ethan's eye, his smile promising something more. Could she trust this new chapter, or would the past pull her back? Have you ever hesitated to embrace happiness because of old scars? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your stories bring this journey to life. If Maya and Ethan's evolving bond resonates, hit like and subscribe to see what's next for their budding family. The Beacon Hill Community Center buzzed with the fading energy of the health fair, its folding tables littered with empty coffee cups and medical pamphlets, the air tinged with the sharp scent of hand sanitizer. Maya Thompson wove through the crowd, her press badge swinging. Noah James nestled in his carrier, his 8-month-old giggles a bright note amidst the chatter. Her notebook brimmed with stories for the Seattle Tribune, Tales of families finding hope through Ethan Caldwell's free clinic initiative. Her silver bracelet caught the late afternoon light, a relic of pain and a symbol of a journey coming full circle. The past 6 months had reshaped her life, weaving Ethan and Noah into a tapestry she hadn't dared dream of. Across the room, Ethan crouched at a booth, his blonde hair falling across his forehead as he reassured a shy teenager about a flu shot. His blue eyes crinkled with warmth, his voice steady as he switched to Spanish to explain a screening to an older woman. Maya watched, her heart swelling. This was the man she'd loved at Columbia, who dreamed of free clinics, now living that vision. Their lives had intertwined gradually. Ethan's evening visits, his gentle way with Noah, their shared silences growing into something deeper, something sustainable. Derek, Noah's father, had faded, his calls sporadic, his Bellevue promises replaced by support checks and a quiet acceptance that he couldn't offer what Maya and Noah needed. Nurse Sarah Johnson, now a friend, sidled up, her graying hair tucked under a cap, her eyes twinkling. "He's a natural with that boy," she said, nodding toward Ethan, who was now bouncing Noah, the baby, tugging at his stethoscope with delight. Maya smiled, her fingers brushing her bracelet. "He's good with everyone," she said, but Sarah's knowing look cut through her deflection. "You know what I mean, Maya. He looks at Noah like he's his own, and at you like you're his world. When are you going to make yourself happy?" The question hung in the air, echoing Maya's fears since Ethan's return. Her mother's warnings, her father's abandonment, Ethan's betrayal a decade ago. They'd built walls she'd thought impenetrable. But Ethan had shown up, not just for Noah, but for her, choosing to stay through sleepless nights and quiet moments. Her journalism and stories of resilience taught her that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Today, watching Ethan pour himself into this community, she felt that courage stir. The fair was winding down, volunteers packing up, families heading home. Ethan approached, Noah still in his arms, his smile soft but tired. "Ready to head home?" he asked, his voice carrying a warmth that had become her new normal. Maya's heart raced, her decision crystallizing. She said, reaching into her purse for a small velvet box, "There's something I want to ask you first." The crowd faded to a hum as she dropped to one knee, right there among the folding tables. Noah's babbling the only sound that mattered. "Ethan Caldwell," she said, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. 10 years ago, you were too afraid to fight for us. 6 months ago, you found the courage to try again. I realized something today, seeing you with Noah and watching you build this clinic for people who need it most." She opened the box, revealing a simple silver band, its shine mirroring her bracelet. The love worth having isn't the kind that never leaves. It's the kind that comes back and chooses to stay. "Will you marry me?" The community center stilled, volunteers and lingering families turning to watch, their murmurs falling silent. Ethan stood frozen, Noah in his arms, his blue eyes bright with unshed tears. He shifted Noah to one arm, reaching down to pull Maya to her feet. "Yes," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Yes, to all of it. To everything." He pulled her close, kissing her as Noah cooed, the crowd erupting in applause, a chorus of strangers and friends celebrating their moment. Later, the evening light bathed the living room in gold in their Fremont apartment. Noah practiced rolling on his playmat, his laughter filling the space. Ethan sat beside Maya, a leather journal open, his pen moving in his careful doctor's handwriting. "What's that?" she asked, leaning against him. "A letter to Noah. he said softly. For when he's older, I want him to know the most important thing I learned about love came from watching his mother, that a heart brave enough to risk everything finds its way home. Outside, Seattle glittered in the dusk, alive with possibility. In their warm living room, 3 hearts, bound by choice and courage, settled into the rhythm of a family. Maya felt a peace she'd never expected, not because life was perfect, but because she'd chosen love that stayed. Can you embrace a love that returns after years of pain? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your stories complete this journey. If Maya's courage inspires you, hit like and subscribe to celebrate this new beginning with us.